Hey everybody, welcome back to Bracket Science. Thanks for making us your choice to get your college basketball information around the nation. We got a full episode today consisting of results, previews, and conference breakdowns, which is going to be the highlight of our show. We're at the point in the season where the conferences are starting to shape out. Some how we expected and some not so expected. We're going to go through each of the 32 conferences in college basketball, briefly discuss where we're at right now and where we might end up. A lot of teams looking for some at-large bids, a lot of teams looking to win their conference tournament to get an automatic bid. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Everyone, please hit that like button, follow us wherever you're listening, whether it's on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or any other podcast platform. Turn on our notifications so you never fall behind on your college basketball knowledge, and you can prepare to have a solid bracket this March season. Before we dive into the conference breakdowns, let's discuss quickly some of the important results that went on this week that changed these conference outlooks dramatically. So it seems to this point in the year that you do not want to be a top 10 team and go on the road to an unranked team, because we are seeing it time and time again. The unranked team seems to take down the top 10 team at home almost every single time. They are more than 50% as of now. There's been over 40 instances so far this year in which this happened. This was notably in place on Tuesday and Wednesday, starting with number 6 Kentucky, who visited South Carolina on Tuesday, and South Carolina beat them 79-62. South Carolina led basically the entire game, just a dominating performance. This was right after Kentucky went into just about everyone's Final Four. Based on their talent, we saw them put up 105 points against Georgia. Saw a graphic, I don't remember if it was on Instagram or Twitter, comparing the Kentucky team this year to that team that platooned which had Devin Booker coming off the bench, saying which team was better, and that's just kind of ridiculous. That Kentucky team was undefeated, and they ended up making the Final Four, and we remember they got beat by Frank Kaminsky and Wisconsin. This team, it's kind of incredible that they're even put into that conversation. I thought it was cool to look at because they do have 10 players who could all be starters on just about any team in the nation. But this team is not as good as that, not sure what year it was, maybe 2014 team. This team is great. They have a lot of All-Americans, but that team in 2014 everyone was an All-American. Speaking of All-Americans, Justin Edwards, he came in as a top three draft pick by many coming into the year at Kentucky, and he has been, quite frankly, very disappointing. In this game, he only had 2 points. He didn't make a field goal in this game. His 2 points came from the free throw line. Aaron Bradshaw, their 7'2" guy, he only had 4 points. He got in foul trouble again. He continues to get in foul trouble. He needs to learn that he is too important to be taken out of the game, and especially in big games like this. Avicic, who had that electric start to his career, he only had 3 points in this game, along with 3 fouls. DJ Wagner had 4 fouls. Reed Shepherd, who has been ever so consistent, he only had 3 points. South Carolina, good for them. Shout out to them. They held off this electric Kentucky offense to only 62 points in the game. Along with, let's shout out Talon Cooper, who led the game with 20 points. He was 8 of 11 shooting. This was a huge win for South Carolina. What does this mean? This is that defining win that could get them into the tournament. They're 16-3 right now, 4-2 in the SEC, and Kentucky is also 4-2 in the SEC. Great win for South Carolina. I'm still in on Kentucky based on their talent. Calipari's got to get them playing a little bit better, but their resume is just not as good as you may think. I don't think they would be a top 3 seed as of right now. They're down to 22 in the net, only 2-3 in quad 1 games, and they have that quad 3 loss at home against Wilmington. I'm still in on Kentucky. I think they got a lot of talent, but this was a huge win for South Carolina. Now, it wasn't a top 10 team that fell, but it was the number 11 team in the nation. This one, the 11 team in the nation, lost at home, where Oklahoma lost to Texas 75-60. Texas is starting to figure things out. They're starting to roll. And it is mainly because of Dylan Dessou. He is making all the difference in the world for this team. He had a double-double, 19 points, 10 rebounds. And Max Abesmith scored 22 points, 4 of 8 from 3. Earlier in the year, Max Abesmith was starting to force a lot of shots. He kind of needed to. He was the team's only offense. But with the addition of Dylan Dessou, this has just helped the team incredibly. He has someone else he can trust with the ball, someone else who can make plays. Dylan DeSue is bringing out the best in the rest of the other players, especially the starters. Brock Cunningham had a great game in this one. Texas and Oklahoma are now both 3-3 in the Big 12. Big 12 is an incredibly tight conference race as of right now. We'll obviously discuss that in a little bit here. Let's move through these a little quickly. Number 13, Wisconsin visited Minnesota. Wisconsin led by 10 at the half and ended up winning the game by 2, 61-59. But the story was an incredible performance at the end where Minnesota was at the free throw line, down 2 with 2 or 3 seconds left, missed the free throw perfectly, and ended up getting it back, shooting it up, barely missed it. Would have been an incredible way to get to overtime. Unfortunately, that last shot rimmed out, but it was incredible to just get it off of the free throw in general. And I say this because we also saw this in a game against last night on Wednesday night, UNC Greensboro. UNC Greensboro played West Carolina, and West Carolina pulled it off perfectly as well. It was 85-82. And the West Carolina player fired it off the front of the rim, got it back, actually kicked it out for a game-tying three, but it was missed. We're starting to see teams starting to get a little better at this. That was an exciting game. Wisconsin, with this win, is still in first place in the Big Ten, even ahead of Purdue. That was an exciting finish to the game, along with the Greensboro and West Carolina game. Now, our only ranked-on-ranked matchup on Tuesday night was number 4 Houston visiting number 21 BYU, and Houston controlled pretty much the entire way, ended up winning the game 75-68. It got closer at the end, but LJ Cryer, he had a big game, 23 points, 5 and 9 from 3. The computers are still love BYU. They're high up at the net. They're high up at Ken Pom. Yet they're now 2-4 in the Big 12, while Houston moves to 4-2. Ohio State visited Nebraska in the last game we'll go in depth on. Nebraska beat them 83-69, and I say this, I put this game in here because Nebraska is one of those teams that should be grabbing people's attention as of right now. Rank Masked had one of the best games of the college basketball season so far this year. He had 34 points, 10 rebounds, 13 of 17 from the field, 6 of 8 for 3. What an incredible night for Rank Masked. Nebraska's now 15-5 on the year, 5-4 in Big Ten play. They beat Purdue. Ohio State, they're continuing to struggle on the road this year. They're 0-4 in road games this year. Yikes, I think this team is better than what they're showing. They're 3-5 in the Big Ten. They're starting to fade from the bubble conversation as of now. They will without a doubt be out. Probably not even in our next 4 out as of now. Just probably under consideration. Rough start to Big Ten play for Ohio State. A few other results that are just notable. We'll just name them real quick. Creighton beat Xavier by 7. This game was at Creighton. Purdue beat Michigan by 32. Yikes. At Purdue, it was a dominating performance. And Florida State won at Syracuse by 16. Big win for Leonard Hamilton and the Seminoles there. Syracuse kind of needed that win at home. Tough loss. Let's move on to Wednesday night real quick. Number 8, Auburn visited Alabama in what was the game of the night. Alabama ended up winning the game 79-75, and it was a strange start to the game. The lights went out at Alabama. At the beginning of the game, Jonai Broom actually hit a 3 in the dark. They got a 3-0 lead. Then there was a big delay there. They had Jalen Milroe come on, and they had a lot of special guests come on. It was kind of a cool thing to watch. But Alabama did end up picking up the win that they needed. Mark Sears had 22. Grant Nelson had 14 and 11. He made some big free throws down the stretch. Jonai Broom is incredible. He had 25 points, 14 rebounds. He continues to make a case for SEC Player of the Year, and it might have been between the two in this game. Jonai Broom, Mark Sears, and then, of course, you got to add Dalton Knecht from Tennessee. Should be a fun race to see come the SEC awards ceremony. It was almost a bad beat, which we have to talk about. We love our bad beats, but it didn't happen in this game. So the line was Alabama minus 3.5, and the score was 79-75. Auburn had the ball with 0.5 seconds left, and of course, everyone was locked in on whether Alabama would cover. You thought they might just give up a layup because it really didn't matter. And thankfully, for some people, they did play defense, and Auburn actually hit a 3 at the buzzer, but they waved it off just a couple decimals of a second too late. So Alabama bettors survived a bad beat. Auburn bettors kind of rough there. But anyways, this even things out at the top of the SEC between Auburn and Alabama. They are now tied for first at 5-1. Tennessee is right behind them. They're 4-1, so technically not behind if they were to win a game. Just one less game played for Tennessee, but the Iron Bowl of basketball was everything we hoped for. Number 10, Illinois visited Northwestern, and Northwestern took them down 96-91 in overtime. This was a great game. Now, if you remember, Illinois beat Northwestern at Illinois this year by 30. Earlier in the year, it just shows how important home court advantage is. Now at Northwestern, Boo Buie just avenges, picks up a much-needed win for Northwestern's resume. Buie may be the clutchest player in college basketball. He had 29 points, 7 assists to lead Northwestern. Anytime there's a big shot to be made, he seems to do it. He is incredible. They also got big games from Barnhizer, Ty Berry, Nicholson. They combined for 49 points. Northwestern's now beat Illinois, Michigan State, and Purdue at home. Unfortunately, they do have that quad 4 loss to Chicago State. I think this team is for sure a tournament team. I think they will get there. If they hadn't lost that game to Chicago State, which was just out of the ordinary, we might be talking this team as a top 20 team, even in the AP poll as of right now. That loss just really hurt their resume. But Northwestern, they're now tied with Illinois, tied for third in the Big Ten behind Wisconsin and Purdue. Illinois, Wisconsin, and Purdue are all top 13 teams as of right now, and Northwestern would be in that conversation had it not been for that Chicago State loss. But I'm in on this Northwestern team. I have faith in Boo Buie. Let's move on to the Mountain West, which number 24 Colorado State visited at Nevada. Nevada won 77-64. We talked in our last podcast that these Big Six teams in the Mountain West of New Mexico, Colorado State, Nevada, San Diego State, Boise State, and Utah State. It just seems whenever they go to their home court, the home team just seems to win. These teams are all very evenly matched, I think. Both teams in this game, Colorado State and Nevada, are now 3-3 in the conference. They'll have to win some road games if they have a chance at winning in the league. Utah State is currently at the top at 5-1, but Utah State also hasn't played some of these tough Big Six teams in the Mountain West. Let's move on to the Big East in a shocking one. St. John's beat up on Villanova 72-50. This game was at St. John's, but only just dominating by 20. St. John's had lost 2 in a row coming in. Now they beat them. They beat Villanova for now the second time this year. Villanova is slowly starting to just really, really struggle. They've lost 3 in a row, 4 of their last 5. They're 4-4 in the Big East. They got off to a good start, luckily for them. But now 4-4, St. John's moves up to 5-4. Villanova is really struggling, and Kyle Neptune is just refuses to get off the hot seat, it seems. Also in the Big East, Providence visited Seton Hall and picked up a huge win, 67-63. They needed this win for their resume, especially with Bryce Hopkins being out for Providence for the rest of the year. This brought Providence back to 4-4 in the conference, and this was a huge quad 1 win, hoping of moving off the bubble. In our last bracketology, we had them as one of the first 4 games, and now this win just really helps their chances. Other notable things that went on that we won't dive too in depth on. Number 23, Iowa State beat Kansas State by 11. This moved both teams to 4-2 in the Big 12. Kansas State came in being tied for first with Texas Tech in the Big 12. Virginia beat NC State in overtime. Moving into the SEC, Florida beat Mississippi State by 9. This was a big game for the bubble. Georgia beat LSU to win by 2. Ole Miss beat up on Arkansas, just absolutely dominated them. They won by 26. Yikes, Arkansas is bad this year, in case you did not know. And then finally in the Pac-12, Washington State dominated Utah by 22, moving both teams to 5-4 in the Pac-12, while Colorado beat up on Washington. This game was at Washington. Colorado now 6-3 in the Pac-12, which is tied at the top. Good win for Colorado, not for Arkansas. Arkansas got drilled. So this is the results that we had on Tuesday and Wednesday. Next, right after a break, we are going to get right into our conference breakdowns, all 32 conferences. All right, let's jump into our conference breakdown. Just a quick layout on how this is going to work. We are just going to go in alphabetical order down the list of all 32 conferences, briefly discuss who's at the top. We'll talk a little bit more about the big conferences, who's going to be on the bubble, especially for some at-large bids. And then we'll talk about some teams who may be some Cinderella stories, some St. Peter's-like stories. out of some of the low major and the mid-major conferences. So at the top, we're going to first start with the ACC, where North Carolina has a 2-game lead in the ACC. They are still undefeated, 8-0, 16-3 on the year, and they are third in the AP poll right now. Surprisingly, in second, after a rough start to their year, Florida State is in second right now. They are 6-2 in the ACC. And guess what? These two teams get to play each other on Saturday. This game will be at Florida State, so that'll be fun. Right behind them is Duke at 5-2. If they pick up another win, they'll move into second with Florida State. And then a lot of bubble teams right behind them. The ACC may have the most bubble teams out of anyone. Virginia, Wake Forest, NC State, Miami, Syracuse, all kind of on the bubble. I do have Wake Forest comfortably in. The rest are right there on the bubble. Pittsburgh has been disappointing. They're 3-5 in the conference. They are off the bubble as of now, but still a little bit considered. And those are the only teams worth noting. Let's go through these quickly. Let's move on to the American East. The American East, the next conference we'll talk about, and they still have 3 undefeated schools left: UMass Lowell, Vermont, and Bryant. UMass Lowell takes on Vermont tonight. It is Thursday while we are recording this. Vermont visits UMass Lowell in what may be the game that makes whichever team wins the regular season champion. Don't count out Bryant yet, though. Bryant also beat FAU earlier in the year, and it looks good for FAU if Bryant continues to win and maybe even win this conference. On to the AAC. Speaking of Florida Atlantic, they are tied for first in the American alongside Charlotte, who also beat FAU earlier in the year. They are 6-1. Now, there are quite a few teams that haven't played as many games, like South Florida is 5-1. SMU and North Texas are 4-1. SMU actually takes on North Texas tonight, so that'll be a fun one to watch. And Memphis is 4-2, off to kind of a shaky start in the American. On to the Atlantic 10. Dayton is the team to watch. This team may be a top 5 seed in March Madness this year. Currently ranked 16th in the AP poll, and they are 6-0. The other undefeated team is Richmond, also 6-0. And guess what? They take on each other on Saturday as well. This will be a fun one to watch. There's no really other schools worth noting. St. Joseph's is 3-3. Loyola Chicago off to a decent start, 5-2. Maybe a little too far behind, especially with one of these teams will pick up a win this weekend. On to the ASUN. This will be a tight race the rest of the year. Eastern Kentucky is actually in first. They're only 9-9 on the year, but they are 5-0 in the conference. North Florida's 4-1. I think it will end up being either Kennesaw State or Lipscomb to win the conference tournament, at least, maybe not the regular season. Kennesaw is 4-2, 1.5 games back, and Lipscomb is 3-2, 2 games back. So we'll see who comes out of that. We saw Lipscomb beat Florida State, and Florida State is competing in the ACC this year. So we'll see there. On to another Power 6 conference. It is the Big 12, and this is the one we will spend the most time discussing because this is the best conference in college basketball, and it is the most interesting conference this year. It is very tight. Texas Tech actually leads at 4-1. Kansas State was tied until they suffered that loss last night to Iowa State. There are 4 teams right behind them at 4-2. This is Houston, Kansas, Iowa State, and then Kansas State, as we spoke of. Baylor has not played as many games. They're 3-2. Oklahoma's 3-3. TCU, Texas, and UCF also 3-3. BYU, Cincinnati, and West Virginia are all 2-4. Oklahoma State is 0-6, the worst team in the conference. I think it's going to start shaping out. This is one of the conferences that hasn't played that many games. I think it's going to end up leaning more towards Houston. It seems Kansas does not seem to be the powerhouse they used to be. I think Houston, especially with that road win at BYU, I think they end up winning this conference fairly easily, honestly. On to the Big East. It seems to be kind of a one-team race as of right now. It is UConn, the defending national champs. They're 7-1. Right behind them is Creighton and Seton Hall, 1.5 games back. They are both 6-3. Creighton's starting to lean towards the top. Seton Hall has dropped a few games in a row. Marquette is 5-3. They've kind of struggled this year so far in the Big East. Then a lot of bubble teams right behind them. St. John's is 5-4. Providence 4-4. Villanova 4-4 and Xavier 4-4, and then the rest are not really worth noting. I think UConn is going to end up running away with this. It seems Creighton's starting to play better. I think it's going to go UConn, Creighton, then Marquette, which the Big East got off to a shaky start, but I think that's what we predicted in the preseason, and that's what it'll end up being. Onto the Big Sky, the teams worth noting. Eastern Washington is off to a 5-0 start. Northern Colorado is 4-1. Montana 4-2. Montana State 4-2 as well. The team I predicted to win the Big Sky was Weber State, and they are 3-4 in conference play right now. This team's got a lot of talent, but they're not winning games like they should in the Big Sky. This should be interesting to see. I still think the conference tournament, it will come down to Eastern Washington, Montana, and Weber State. We'll see who gets the at large or automatic bid there. Excuse me. On to the Big South. The Big South is a conference that you are going to want to take note of, as they have some teams who could be some Cinderella stories come March. High Point is off to a great start this year. They're 17-4 on the year, 6-0 in the conference. UNC Asheville is also good. They're 5-1 in the conference, 13-8 on the year. They always seem to squeeze their way into March Madness, maybe getting a 13 or 14 seed, it seems, in the past. UNC Asheville, they have a lot of experience. Also, Winthrop is a team to keep an eye out for. They're 5-2 in conference play. They're 14-8 on the year. They always have. They haven't been to the tournament since that Chandler Vaudrin team, where Chandler Vaudrin, who now plays, it's in the G League somewhere, might be with the Cleveland Charge. Winthrop, they were a heavy pick when Vaudrin was there as a 12 seed, and they also have a lot of experience. These could be some teams that win a game come March. All right, on to another Power 6 conference, which is the Big Ten. Surprisingly, Wisconsin is in first ahead of Purdue. Wisconsin 7-1, Purdue is 7-2. Right behind them, we talked about Northwestern and Illinois already. They're 5-3. And then we have a slate of bubble teams: Nebraska, Michigan State, Ohio State. I think Nebraska and Michigan State will end up in the tournament, both of them. I think Michigan State for sure. We'll see about Nebraska, but that should be a 6-bid league, I would think. Indiana's 4-4, and Indiana is quite frankly just not very good this year, and they have to visit Illinois on Saturday. They should lose that game. Maryland and Jameer Young have looked better as of late. I still don't think this is a tournament team. We'll see if Jameer Young can carry them. And then Ohio State, who I did predict to be in the tournament this year, as of now, they would not be unless they pick up some key wins. They will get Purdue at home in February, so we'll see. They're 3-5 in the conference. Purdue 18-2 on the year. Wisconsin 15-4 on the year. They, as of now in our bracketology, Purdue is the number 1 overall seed, and Wisconsin is a 2 seed. So they should carry the Big Ten this year. On to the Big West. UC Davis is in first. They're 7-1. UC Irvine and UC San Diego right behind at 6-1. I think it's going to end up being UC Irvine. I think they're without a doubt the best team. They might end up being a 12 or 13 seed, and this team has a lot of talent. Watch out for UC Irvine come March. In the CAA, Drexel undefeated in the conference, 7-0, 14-6 on the year. Trailing right behind them, some very solid teams in UNC Wilmington. We talked about them beating Kentucky, and Charleston got off to a shaky start this year, but have recovered as of late. Those teams are both 4-2. On to the Conference USA. I thought without a doubt it would be Liberty. Not even close. Liberty is 2-3 in the conference. At the top, it is New Mexico State, Louisiana Tech, and Sam Houston, all 3-1. Western Kentucky is also good. They are 2-3. Not a lot of games have been played, so this one will shape out a little bit differently. So right now in the bracketology, we do have Louisiana Tech as the team. I think they might be the team to beat, but don't count out Western Kentucky and Liberty. Moving on to the Horizon League, Oakland up at the top at 7-2. Right behind them is Green Bay at 7-3. The team I expect to end up winning the conference and even the conference tournament. I think the best team is Youngstown State. Youngstown State should end up in March Madness. I'm expecting they're 6-3. Northern Kentucky is also 6-3. Moving on, let's talk about the Ivy League, where the only team worth mentioning basically is Princeton. They are 3-0 in the conference, 15-1, off to a great start. Their lone loss coming at St. Joe's. Cornell and Yale are also 3-0, but I think it will for sure end up being Princeton, coming off that great season last year. Into the MAAC, Quinnipiac and St. Peter's are tied at 6-1. St. Peter's, they got some magic in March. Watch out for them. Quinnipiac has also been good. Fairfield is right behind them at 6-2. Quinnipiac and St. Peter's are 6-1. Moving on to the MEAC conference, Delaware State is in first as of now at 3-0. Norfolk State and NC Central are right behind at 2-1. I do believe it will be Norfolk State or NC Central who ends up winning this. They are I think Norfolk is the best team in the conference. We'll see how it plays out. They'll probably be battling for a 15 or 16 seed. In the Mid-American Conference, the MAC, Akron 7-0. This is the team to beat without a doubt. We've spent a lot of time talking about Akron in the past. This team was good last year, and they brought back just about everyone. They're undefeated in conference play, 15-4 on the year. Right behind them is Toledo, 6-1, 12-7 on the year. Bowling Green, Central Michigan, and Western Michigan are all 5-2. It should be Akron's conference to lose. One of the most exciting conferences this year has been the Missouri Valley. A lot of good teams out of there. Indiana State currently leads at 8-1. They're 17-3 on the year. Drake is right behind at 7-2. They just lost. Bradley is also 7-2, with Northern Iowa right behind them at 6-3. I think it will end up being Indiana State with Drake right behind them. Bradley is a very good three-point shooting team, though, so they could knock off either of these top two teams. Now, what I believe the most exciting conference so far this year, the most unexpected, is the Mountain West. They have been incredible. I think it's going to be a 6-bid league as of right now. Utah State and Boise State are at the top at 5-1. New Mexico and San Diego State are right behind at 5-2. Nevada and Colorado State, as we spoke about earlier, are 3-3. No team in this conference has more than, or in the top six, have more than 5 losses, which is Boise State as of now. All right, now let's move into the Northeast Conference, where CCSU, Central Connecticut State University, for those who don't know, are currently in first at 5-1, 11-8 on the year. Sacred Heart right behind them at 4-1. The two best teams in the conference may be Merrimack and Wagner, though, right behind them. Merrimack 4-2, Wagner 3-2. It's going to be a fun conference race. They'll be battling for a 16 seed come March Madness time, come conference tournament time. Maybe even playing for one of the first 4 games, a play-in game. Northeast Conference, one of the weaker conferences, but still a fun one to watch. Moving on to the Ohio Valley Conference. The winner of this should be Morehead State, and they are in first in this conference at 6-1. Western Illinois right behind at 5-1, but it should be Morehead State, probably battling for a 13 or 14 seed. We remember what they did to Louisville in the tournament as a 13 seed many years ago. Let's move into the Pac-12, which is another fun conference to talk about, one of the Power Six. Arizona, Oregon, Arizona State, and Colorado all tied for first right now. The top three, first 3 mentioned, Arizona, Oregon, and Arizona State are 5-2. Colorado is 6-3. Technically, Colorado a little bit less than them, but still, for the sake of games back, they are tied. Arizona should run away with this, I would think. Oregon is one of those teams that they weren't supposed to be good because Biddle and N'Faly Dante were both out. They've been all right, and now they have them both back. So we'll see with the addition of those two and Jackson Shellstad over there, along with Rigsby. They got a nice little team. This is one of those teams you can kind of buy stock in right now. Oregon to win the Pac-12, maybe even sneak in the tournament and make a little run with all their talent. They're going to be undervalued as a seed, but this team's got some serious firepower. Along with Colorado, buy stock in Colorado right now. They have they had some injury issues, let's just say it that way. They got KJ Simpson, who's one of the best players in the conference. He'll be a first team all Pac-12. This team's got a lot of talent. They got a lot of size. They were predicted well. They were in the top 25 early in the year. I think this team could make a run. They're not a team I would like to play come March. They also have Utah. Utah's 5-4, and Stanford is 5-3. Washington State 5-4. So the Pac-12 is not as bad as many think. It's getting better this year, other than UCLA and USC, who are projected to be good and just quite frankly are horrible. UCLA's 3-5, 8-11 on the year. USC is 2-6, 8-11 on the year as well. But other than those two teams, the Pac-12 has exceeded expectations so far as of this year. I still expect Arizona to run through. I think they're just the most complete team by far. But we'll see what Oregon or Colorado can do. Into the Patriot League, the most surprising league so far this year. Lafayette is in first at 7-0, yet they're 8-12 on the year. So do the math. They were 1-12 going into conference play, yet they're 7-0. Colgate is right behind them at 6-1. They're 12-8 on the year. They were heavily projected to win this conference fairly easily, even make the tournament. Maybe not have a first 4 game, but it might be a first first four league this year. We'll see. If Colgate were to win the conference tournament, they might just be a 16 seed, maybe sneak into a 15 seed, but I would guess a 16 seed. Let's move on to the SEC, who, when we ranked our conferences in a podcast couple times ago, we had this as our second best league this year, right behind the Big 12. As we mentioned earlier in the show, Auburn and Alabama are tied for first at 5-1. Tennessee 4-1, right behind them, just a game short of Alabama and Auburn. And then South Carolina, Kentucky, and Georgia are all one game back at 4-2. Ole Miss, Florida, Texas A&M, LSU, all 3-3. Mississippi State 2-4, and Arkansas, maybe the most disappointing team in the nation, is 1-5. I still think it's going to be Tennessee. I think Tennessee is the most complete team. Auburn was the favorite to win the SEC going into that game against Alabama. I'm not sure if it's changed since then. If it is, I expect it to be Tennessee to be the favorite. Kentucky is still in that conversation, but they're young, they're inexperienced. I think their ceiling is higher than any team in this conference, but I don't know if they're gonna win the regular season outright. We'll see how it goes during a conference tournament. That might be a completely different story. But this league also has a lot of bubble teams. Ole Miss, one of the surprising teams. Everyone projected them to be horrible in the SEC, even based off that 13-0 start. But they're 3-3. They're holding their own. They just beat up on Arkansas, as we talked about. They're all right. I think they're going to make the tournament. I think they have enough there. Florida and Mississippi State are very similar, as we talked. They just played last night, where Florida beat them, which was a big win. They're both 13-6 on the year. A&M, another one of those teams thrown in the conversation. Just a lot of solid teams, a lot of bubble teams. We'll see a lot of 7 through probably 10 seeds from this conference, maybe even some 11 seeds, and maybe even a first 4 game out of the SEC. Very fun conference to watch. My favorite low major, mid major conference this year is the Southern Conference, the SoCon. This is an incredible conference to watch, and this is probably the most talented mid major conference there is this year. Samford and UNC Greensboro are tied for first, 6-1. Samford is 17-3 on the year. We talked about their start to the season. They got drilled by Purdue by more than 50. They lost to VCU. And then they went on and won 17 in a row before they lost last night to Furman. So they dropped their first game of the conference. UNC Greensboro is always good for a good year. They're 6-1 as well, 15-5. Overall, Chattanooga and Furman are 5-2 in the league, both above 500 in overall as well. Western Carolina has been great. They just lost that overtime game to UNC Greensboro, which we talked about. They almost pulled off that miracle free throw there. They're 15-5 on the year, 4-3 in the conference. Wofford 4-3, 11-9 overall. This is a very fun conference to watch. I'm not sure who's going to win the regular season, but I think for their best chance for a team to win in March, it would be UNC Greensboro. Samford has a lot of offensive firepower. I just don't think their game really translates as much. We'll see if they can step it up a little bit on the defensive end and beat some better teams, but we'll see. The SoCon, very fun to watch. The Southland, the story is McNeese State. McNeese State 6-0, 17-2 on the year. This is a conference that just belongs to McNeese State. We saw them. They beat Texas A&M Corpus Christi on that miracle. At the end of the game, they got a rebound off of a free throw. It wasn't a missed free throw on purpose, as we talked about. It was just a missed free throw where they happened to get an offensive rebound and score. Texas A&M Corpus Christi is in second. They're right behind them at 4-2, along with Lamar and Nicholls State. But it is McNeese State's conference to lose. 17-2 overall. If they were to run through the conference, they already beat Texas A&M Corpus Christi at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. So if they were to run the table in this conference, they'll be at serious consideration for an at-large bid. We'll see. We'll see how they do. I fully expect McNeese State to be in the tournament and probably be that 12 seed that beats the 5 seed. The SWAC, probably the worst conference in college basketball. In fact, they are the worst conference in college basketball. Alabama State, Jackson State, and Grambling are all 4-1 in the conference and in the lead, yet nobody, not just these 3 teams, nobody in the entire conference is above 500 overall for the season. This is a conference where it is just up for grabs. Southern would probably be my pick. They're 3-2. Them or Bethune-Cookk. Bethune-Cookk is also 3-2. Southern they beat Mississippi State at Mississippi State. For that reason only, I would take Southern probably to win this conference. Moving on, the Summit League. Another fun one. South Dakota State is first, 4-1, 11-9 on the year. They are the heavy favorite to win this conference in the to be the conference bid in the tournament, I should say, because St. Thomas is in there. St. Thomas of Minnesota. They may win the regular season. They're 3-2, but they are not yet March Madness eligible because they moved up divisions. They're 13-7 on the year, 3-2. They are holding their own. One of the dumbest rules by the NCAA is not allowing teams like this to play in March Madness. Denver is also 3-2, and that is about it. Worth noting, it should be South Dakota State. They are the best team in this conference, without a doubt. Into the Sun Belt, another fun conference. We talked a lot about James Madison early in the year because of that win over Michigan State, first game of the year, and then Appalachian State beat Auburn. They beat Auburn at Appalachian State. It was an interesting road game for Auburn, but Appalachian State actually won at James Madison just maybe a week ago or so, which was a huge win, which put them in first at 6-2. At 6-1, excuse me. James Madison is 6-2. Their only two losses have come in conference play to Southern Miss and Appalachian State. Appalachian State's 15-4 on the year. James Madison is 18-2 on the year. James Madison does have a chance for an at-large bid if both teams were to run the table, and then Appalachian State were to end up winning the tournament. Those are not bad losses for James Madison. And guess what? They get to play each other on Saturday. Just shows how loaded our slate is on Saturday. We'll get into previewing that here after we talk about the WAC and the West Coast, but we'll start with the WAC. Grand Canyon is the team. They're 7-1 in conference. Their lone loss came to Seattle, which was kind of a strange loss, but they're 17-2 on the year. Another one of those mid-majors who are hoping for an at-large bid if they run the table. Stephen F. Austin is in second at 5-2, 12-6 in conference or overall. Excuse me. Tarleton State is also 5-2 and 12-6. It should be Grand Canyon's. It'll be Grand Canyon's to lose. And finally, the West Coast Conference has been interesting this year, to say the least. Gonzaga is not in first. In fact, they are not in second yet. St. Mary's is in first at 5-0, even after their shaky start to the year. They're finally starting to figure things out. They have a chance for an at-large bid. Santa Clara is currently in second, but only because they've played one more game than Gonzaga and San Francisco. They're 5-1. San Francisco and Gonzaga 4-1. San Francisco plays at Gonzaga tonight, which we are not going to cover because we covered that in our last show. So go take a look at that if you haven't already. That is an exciting WCC matchup. It's going to be between St. Mary's and Gonzaga, just as it seems to be every year. For a chance for the West Coast to have two bids, I think if St. Mary's were to go undefeated in the conference and then Gonzaga were to win the tournament, both teams would get in. We'll see. It's going to be a fun West Coast conference. That is it for our conference breakdowns. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll got a little in depth to some of the conferences we don't talk about too often. We're used to talking about the Big 12, the SEC, the Big 10, the Big East, but we don't always talk about the SWAC. So hopefully that gives a little bit of insight, and you can take your pick on which team you think could be a Cinderella story. So let's take a quick little break, and then we're going to get into our Sweet 16 games where we talk about 16 games, and we have a loaded slate of college basketball. We'll talk about 16 of them, some of the KenPom lines, what our picks are, some of our best bets right after this. All right, let's talk our Sweet 16 games, the games to know this weekend. We have an absolutely incredible slate. Starting on Saturday, we are not going to talk about this Michigan State-Wisconsin game that we're publishing this episode on Friday, but we're recording this on Thursday night. So we're not going to talk about Michigan State visiting Wisconsin. We previewed that on our last one. So go take a look at that if you haven't already. We talked about that on our Tuesday show. But with that being said, our first game we're going to talk about is Kansas State visiting number 4 Houston at 12 o'clock. The Houston is favored by 17 via KenPom. This game's on ESPN. By the way, we went 9-3 last week. Pretty good start. We're starting to finally figure out the lines, starting to figure out what's going on. That was our best week. We've been above 500 in just about all of these, but 9-3 last week with also 2 ties as well. But so let's get it going. Let's hopefully have a better keep this hot streak up a little bit. But with Houston, 17 points, this seems like too much. I'm not that high on Kansas State's talent, but 17 points is way too much. I'll take Kansas State to cover this 17. At 1 o'clock, Seton Hall visits number 14 Marquette. Marquette favored by 8. This game is on FS1. I will take Marquette to cover this 8 without even thinking about it. I think Seton Hall's magic run may be over, but Marquette is, I'm kind of lower on this team than most people. I don't think, even last year I didn't think their talent was that great. This year I think it's kind of showing even more. I still think they're a good basketball team. I think they cover 8. I think they're a much better team than Seton Hall, and they kind of desperately need a big win here. At 1:30 is probably the game of the day. We'll say that for now. Number 7 Kansas visits number 23 Iowa State. This game is on CBS, and Iowa State favored on KenPom by 4. Very interesting stuff there. Wow, tough one to pick here. I could see Kansas winning the game. I could also see Iowa. I don't like this Kansas team this year. I don't think Kansas is that good. I haven't been that high on Iowa State, but I'm starting to see things come together. Taman Lipsey should play in this game, I would think. I can't believe I'm saying this. I think I will take Iowa State to cover the 4 in this game. I think I could see Kansas winning just because of Bill Self, and they've really struggled on the road, but I don't think their talent is really there this year. Give me Iowa State minus the 4. At 2 o'clock, another ranked on ranked matchup, and of course it's out of the Big 12. Number 20 Texas Tech visits number 12 Oklahoma. This game's on ESPN Plus. Get that subscription. Oklahoma is favored by 4 via KenPom. Very good matchup here. I think you can throw all these teams into a hat, and I would just take the home team. You got TCU, Texas Tech, Oklahoma, Iowa State, BYU, even Texas. Throw Texas in there. I'll just pretty much take the home team every time. I think I would take Oklahoma minus the 4. I think it evens out things at the top of the Big 12. A loss would move Texas Tech into that 2-loss region, and I think that Houston should take care of business against Kansas State, which would move Houston back into first, and I think that's where they'll stay. Give me Oklahoma minus the 4. At 2 o'clock, also in the Big 12, staying here, Texas visits number 21 BYU. This game's on ESPN2. And KenPom has it BYU minus 8. And with this line, I don't think it's going to be 8. I think it'll be more 5.5, 6.5. I think I'll still take Texas. I was so low on Texas at the beginning of the year. They should have lost to Louisville. That says all you need to know about Texas. Now I'm back in. I think they got something going here. Dylan Dessou made all the difference in the world. He's taken stress off Max Abesmith. I'll take Texas plus 8 in this game without a doubt. Maybe even sprinkle a little bit on Texas money line, even though BYU is a very tough place to play. Not so bought in on BYU. I'm back to being bought in on Texas. At 2 o'clock, we talked about this game a little bit earlier. Number 3, North Carolina visits Florida State. This game's on ESPN. North Carolina favored by 8 via KenPom. The top 2 teams in the ACC. Tough line here. Florida State has been very inconsistent, yet they're 6-2 in ACC play, but North Carolina is the best team in the conference. I think I'll take Florida State to cover the 8 being at home. North Carolina's two-game lead is a little bit too comfortable, I think, and Florida State has something to really play for here. North Carolina can kind of just coast. I think North Carolina wins the game, but I think Florida State covers the 8. I'll take Florida State plus 8 in this one. At 3 o'clock, we had to include a rivalry game, even if it's a big spread. Indiana visits number 10 Illinois with Terrence Shannon back. This game is on Fox. Indiana, very disappointing. Illinois, they've been very good this year. Illinois is favored by 15 in this game via KenPom. Interesting line here. That feels like a lot of points, yet Illinois is coming off a loss, and Indiana has just quite frankly been bad. Tough line here, 15. You would think in Indiana, Illinois, it should easily cover 15, yet I've kind of given up on this Indiana team with their lack of heart. I think I'll take Illinois just for that reason. Terrence Shannon and Marcus Domask, they at home, I give me Illinois, not too confidently, minus 15. At 3:30, number 8 Auburn visits Mississippi State. This game's on the SEC Network. Auburn coming off that loss, and so is Mississippi State to Florida. Auburn with that loss at Alabama. Auburn favored by 4 via KenPom. This is the one I'm going to take the upset, the unranked team at home. I'll take Mississippi State plus the 4, and I will take Mississippi State to win the game, actually. We'll see. At 4 o'clock, out of the ACC, Clemson visits number 12 Duke. Duke favored by 7 in this game is on ESPN. These were the two teams coming into conference play that we thought might be the two teams to beat in the ACC, yet it has not been that case. Clemson has not been good in the ACC. Duke just lost to Pitt at home. They did beat Louisville right after that. This is a tough line. Those 6.5 to 8.5 lines are tough. I think I'll take Clemson to cover the 7. I've liked what I've seen from them coming the last couple days. I'm not that bought in on Duke. We'll see how healthy they are in this game. I think the line, if Duke has everyone back, if they have Mark Mitchell back and Jeremy Roach back, I think it'll be more like 9.5. And I would definitely take Clemson to cover that. I think they'll get back on track. They had a weak little stretch there, but I think they'll figure stuff out. Also at 4 o'clock on ESPN2 is TCU visiting number 15 Baylor. Baylor favored by 6 via KenPom. And I don't think that's enough points. I think Baylor will beat TCU in this game, especially at home in that new stadium. I'll take them to cover the 6 as well. Out of the Mountain West, this game is not televised, unfortunately. Give the Mountain West some respect. It's at 4 o'clock. Number 18 Utah State visits Boise State. And I'm going to keep rolling with the home team. I will take Boise State to cover 1, which they are favored at KenPom. I'll take Boise State. I will continue to bet the home team in the Mountain West in these Big 6 games until it fails me. Give me Boise State. In the Pac-12, the first Pac-12 matchup we've talked about, number 9 Arizona visits Oregon. This game is on Fox. Arizona favored by 7 via KenPom. As we talked about, Oregon got some of their height back. I think I will take Oregon to cover the 7 in this game. Arizona did not look good against UCLA. Now with Dante and Fali Dante and Biddle back, I'm curious to see how good this Oregon team really is. I'll take them to cover the 7 at home. At 6 o'clock, number 6 Kentucky visits Arkansas. Yes, Arkansas is in here. This game is on ESPN. Kentucky is favored by 7 via KenPom. I'll take Kentucky to cover the 7. They're coming off that loss, and Arkansas is just quite frankly bad, no matter how tough that environment is. Yes, they beat Duke. I think they're getting worse and worse. This team has no heart. Give me Kentucky minus the 7. Now we have 2 mid-major games to talk about, which we talked about a little bit earlier in the show in our conference breakdowns. Some of the top of the conference teams, both undefeated in this case. Number 16 Dayton visits Richmond on CBS Sports Network. This game's at 6 o'clock, and Dayton is favored by 3 via KenPom. I am in on Dayton this year. I've been saying it from the get-go. I know it's at Richmond. I think Dayton is way too good. I will take Dayton minus the 3 in this game. I think they cover. I am in on the Dayton Flyers. Also at 6 o'clock, James Madison visits Appalachian State. App State beat them earlier in the year. App State is favored by 2. This game's on ESPN2. And if App State beat them at James Madison, why wouldn't they beat them at home? I'll take App State minus the 2. And our last game we're going to talk about is on Sunday at 10 o'clock. Most people probably won't catch this game with, unfortunately, it being a Sunday night. But it is Nevada visiting number 25 New Mexico. New Mexico favored by 6 via KenPom. This game's on FS1. And as I said, I will take the home team in this Mountain West. I will take New Mexico in the Pit, one of the toughest places to play in the country. So that's our Sweet 16. We did write down a few other games to note that you should probably just be aware of because there is a full slate on Saturday. There is a lot of games. Some of the major games to note, we have Georgia at Florida in the SEC. Pitt visits Miami. Villanova at Butler. Colorado at Washington State. Washington State is rolling right now, by the way. NC State at Syracuse. Syracuse needs a win desperately bad for their tournament hopes. LSU at Alabama. Rivalry game. Ole Miss at A&M. Ohio State at Northwestern. Ohio State desperately needs a road win. Northwestern is rolling right now. Then Utah at Washington. A lot of good games there. And then a few mid-major games to note because we had to throw it in here because we talked about all conferences. High Point visits Winthrop. Bradley visits Indiana State. And Northern Iowa visits Drake. Full slate of hoops this weekend. Hopefully everyone will be tuned in. Hopefully you enjoyed our Sweet 16. Maybe you have some different picks of your own. We'd love to hear them. Drop them in the comments. That is it for our Sweet 16. That is it for our show today. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Remember to please give us a like and a subscribe, whether you're listening to this on YouTube or on any podcast network. Give us a rating, write a review, let us know how you feel. Give us some comments. We'd love to hear opinions on everything, even if it is highly debatable. We love talking college basketball and everything college basketball. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Our Instagram and Twitter is at Bracket Science with 2 S's. We post every game, every notable result on our Instagram, on our Twitter, on our Facebook. Our Facebook is Bracket Science, 2 words. Go check it out on there if you prefer to see updates on Facebook. Remember to tap the notifications button so you are not a day behind on your college basketball information, we'll say. But that is it. Thanks again for tuning in. Hopefully everyone has a great weekend. Check out the full slate of college hoops. See you later.